The alien students were eager. Sitting quietly in the classroom as a historian, their teacher began to speak. Their planet, a lush world of gentle environments and perfect balance, had never seen the harsh realities of Earth. They'd heard the word Deathworld whisper among other species, but they had little understanding of why Earth held such a reputation. As they looked around at each other, their eyes filled with curiosity and doubt, wondering how a world could be considered so dangerous when it was home to life in such abundance. The teacher began by explaining that Earth wasn't simply dangerous in the conventional way. It wasn't just about fierce animals or toxic plants. It was about the unpredictable chaos that existed there. Earth, unlike most planets, had evolved in a way that caused life forms to constantly adapt, evolve, and battle for survival. While other planets experienced relatively stable ecosystems, Earth was a constantly shifting, unpredictable arena of life, where even the smallest change could upset everything. From the surface to the core, nothing about Earth was static. Everything was a potential hazard, and this instability was what earned Earth its reputation. At first, the students seemed confused. A death world didn't seem to make sense. After all, how could life evolve in such an unstable place? Surely, they thought, a planet so full of chaos couldn't possibly sustain complex life for long. The idea that survival in Earth's conditions required immense adaptation struck them as strange, almost impossible. They had been taught about more hostile worlds, planets ravaged by radiation or frozen under layers of ice. But Earth, with volatile and unpredictable ecosystem, seemed even more dangerous than those worlds. It wasn't just about surviving harsh conditions. It was about surviving the constant uncertainty. The teacher's voice grew more animated as they spoke of the planet's history. Earth's ecosystems didn't work in harmony. Instead, they were in constant conflict with one another. The land could be blistering hot one moment and freezing the next. Forests could be alive with lush greenery, yet home to deadly predators lurking in the shadows. Oceans teemed with life, but beneath the surface were creatures that could swallow a human whole. The creatures that called Earth home didn't just evolve to fill niches. They evolved to fight against each other, creating a never-ending battle for survival. On Earth, the teacher said, life is not simply a matter of existing. It's a matter of constantly being on edge. You must either adapt or perish. And even if you survive one threat, the next is always lurking. It is a place where no species, no matter how large or small, is safe. Even the human beings you've heard so much about, they are not immune to the dangers of their own world. The students listened intently, but their doubts remained. They'd been taught about other species that had thrived in extreme environments, planets where survival was difficult but not impossible. They had heard stories of civilizations that had conquered hostile worlds through technology and strength. But Earth didn't seem to make sense. It was as though the entire planet had conspired to make survival as difficult as possible. The teacher paused, letting the weight of their words settle in the room. What makes Earth a death world is not just the strength of its creatures or the severity of its climates, they explained. It's the unpredictability. One day, the weather could be calm and inviting. The next, a storm of unimaginable fury could wipe out entire regions. The planet itself seems determined to throw challenges at anyone who tries to live on it. A student raised their hand, their expression skeptical. But surely the people of Earth can't survive if their environment is so chaotic. There must be a limit, right? The teacher smiled knowingly. That's where Earth is different. The people who live on Earth, the humans, have learned to adapt in ways you can't imagine. While other species might retreat to shelter when faced with danger, humans face it head-on. They don't just survive, they fight. And even when they lose, they rebuild. They understand that in a place like Earth, you can't wait for safety. You have to create it. The students fell silent, their doubts beginning to dissipate. This wasn't just about surviving one danger. It was about surviving in a place where danger was a norm, not the exception. The teacher moved on to the next point, the assignment. They would explore Earth through a virtual reality simulation, where they would witness firsthand the dangers of the planet. As the students prepared for the assignment, the teacher gave them one final thought to ponder. Remember, Earth's true challenge isn't its dangers. It's the fact that life on Earth has evolved to thrive in the face of those dangers. The humans didn't just survive their world, They bend it to their will, finding ways to coexist with its chaos. And that is what makes Earth a death world. With those final words, the class grew quiet. The students were left with a sense of awe and unease. They had entered the discussion with skepticism, but now they understood that Earth wasn't just another planet. It was something different, something dangerous, but undeniably resilient. And as the simulation began, they would soon discover the truth about why Earth earned its fearsome reputation. The students, still grappling with the information they've been given about Earth, found themselves now entering the virtual reality simulation. They were told that they would be observing Earth firsthand, but not as simple tourists. They were to witness its dangers and survival scenarios up close. As the simulation activated, they saw the barren landscape of Earth's desert stretch out before them, endless and unforgiving. The alien students watched as a scorching wind swept across the sand dunes, kicking up heat waves that distorted the horizon. One student, a member of a species from a temperate planet, commented on how it looked almost uninhabitable. The desert seemed to stretch on forever, lifeless and devoid of water. Yet, as they zoomed in closer, they saw signs of life. A small lizard scurried across the sand, its body perfectly designed to withstand the scorching temperatures. It moved with a sense of purpose, as though it knew exactly how to survive. The students were shocked. How could anything survive in such an environment? The teacher's voice echoed through their earpieces, explaining that Earth's creatures had adapted in ways that seemed impossible. The lizard you see before you, the teacher explained, has evolved to conserve moisture and regulate its body temperature. In this desert, even a few minutes of exposure could mean death. Yet this creature has learned to endure. The students observed how the lizard didn't pause to drink or rest. It moved quickly, its eyes always scanning for danger, its body moving in a precise pattern, almost as if it were calculating every move. The alien students had seen creatures in their own worlds, but none were so finely tuned to the environment around them. The survival of this tiny creature in the face of such extreme conditions didn't seem logical to them. How could Earth produce such a life form? The simulation shifted, and the students found themselves on the edge of a jungle. They saw massive trees towering overhead, the dense undergrowth creating a nearly impenetrable barrier. The air was thick with humidity, the sounds of countless creatures echoing from every direction. Suddenly, a snake, venomous and fast, darted out from the foliage, striking at a small mammal. The students watched in stunned silence as the snake coiled around its prey. It was swift, precise, and deadly. Even in this jungle, the teacher explained, Earth's predators are always hunting. It's a constant battle for survival. The snakes, like the lizards, have evolved over millennia to be as efficient and deadly as possible. Their venom paralyzes prey within seconds, giving them a distinct advantage. A student raised their hand, asking how any species could thrive in such a deadly environment. The teacher's response was simple. Survival on Earth is not just about strength. It's about adaptability. The humans you'll witness later on have learned to navigate these jungles, not by being strongest, but by using tools, intelligence, and teamwork. The alien students were perplexed. The idea of a species relying on tools and cooperation to survive, rather than their natural abilities, was an alien concept to many of them. How could beings so small, so fragile compared to the beasts they'd just seen, survive in such a brutal world? The concept of teamwork was especially foreign to them. On their planets, each species had evolved to survive alone. The idea that humans could thrive through cooperation was something they hadn't fully grasped. The simulation then moved to the oceans. The students observed a vast, dark expanse stretching beyond the horizon. Beneath the surface, enormous creatures glided silently through the water. One massive predator, a shark, stalked its prey, an unsuspecting fish, which was much smaller and faster. The alien students observed as the shark struck, its speed and power leaving no room for escape. The water seemed filled with predators, each more dangerous than the last. Then, the simulation shifted once again, showing them a different view, a group of humans diving into the deep ocean. These humans were equipped with tools, metal suits, and oxygen tanks, designed to survive the crushing depths. The alien students watched in awe as the humans moved with confidence, diving deeper and deeper into the ocean. undeterred by the dangers lurking below. They are diving to depths where the pressure would crush any other species, the teacher remarked. Yet they have developed technology to withstand the forces of the ocean. They have learned not to fear the predators, but to face them head-on, to adapt, and to find a way to survive even in the most hostile environments. The alien students were beginning to see a pattern. It wasn't just that Earth was dangerous. It was that Earth had shaped its inhabitants into something different, something resilient. The predators of Earth, in all their terrifying forms, were merely obstacles for those who knew how to survive. The humans didn't have the physical strength of the larger creatures, nor did they possess the natural weapons that other species used to dominate their worlds. Instead, they had their minds, their adaptability, and their ability to work together. It was this realization that began to shift the students' perception. The concept of survival was not just about overpowering your environment. It was about understanding it, adapting to it, and using every tool available to outwit it. As the students reflected on what they had witnessed, they couldn't help but admire the humans' resourcefulness. Earth's animals, no matter how fierce, were not the true test of survival on this planet. It was the environment itself that was the greatest challenge, and the humans had learned over countless generations how to conquer it. As the simulation ended, the students were left in stunned silence. Their doubts had not only been erased, they had been replaced by respect. Earth was not just a place of danger. It was a place where life had evolved to not only endure, but thrive in the face of chaos. And the humans, with their fragile bodies and incredible intelligence, had risen to the top of the food chain, not through raw strength, but through a relentless will to survive. The teacher's voice echoed once again in their ears. Now you begin to understand why Earth is called a Deathworld. It is not the predators that make it dangerous. It is the ever-changing, unpredictable nature of the environment, and it is the humans who have mastered that chaos. They are a testament to the power of adaptability and intelligence. The students, now fully aware of the harsh reality of Earth, were left to contemplate the true meaning of survival. They had entered the simulation expecting to witness a world of death and destruction, but what they found was something far more profound, a world where life fought not just to survive, but to thrive, no matter the odds. As the alien students stood in the aftermath of the simulation, their minds were filled with questions and awe. The idea that a species so seemingly vulnerable had managed to conquer Earth's lethal environments through intelligence and teamwork had completely redefined their understanding of survival. They had been shown Earth's extremes, its deserts, jungles, and oceans, each one a place where death lurked at every corner. But as they began to absorb the information, it became clear that the real power of Earth's inhabitants lay not in their physical abilities, but in their mental resilience. This was not a planet of simple survival. It was a planet of relentless innovation and adaptability. The teacher, sensing their growing realization, guided them to a deeper understanding. You witnessed the brutal forces of nature on Earth, but now you must understand how these forces shape the humans. It's not just about tools or technology. It's about their mindset. To survive on Earth is to embrace the chaos, not fear it. The students sat in silence, reflecting on this. The concept was foreign to them. On their own planets, life was fragile in its own ways, but never quite like Earth. The idea of thriving in such an unpredictable world was something they couldn't fully grasp until now. What the teacher was suggesting was that humans had come to terms with the chaos. They didn't fight against it. They lived with it, mastered it, and even used it to their advantage. The teacher continued, their voice steady and clear. Humans understand that survival is not guaranteed. It is a constant struggle, but it is also a journey of growth. You've seen how they adapt to nature's challenges. But what sets them apart is their ability to innovate. Where most species would perish or retreat, humans find a way to not just endure, but to improve their situation. The simulation shifted once again, and now the students were placed in a human city. The towering buildings, bustling streets, and endless activity before them seemed so different from the wild landscapes they had seen earlier. The students observed the humans as they navigated this environment. It was a world of technology, of machines that made life easier, but the presence of danger was still evident. The students saw humans working in factories, building structures, and engaging in commerce. But they also saw the underlying dangers. Humans were still at the mercy of the world they had conquered Earth's violent weather, unpredictable earthquakes, and volcanic eruptions could strike at any moment, even in these urban areas. One of the students, intrigued by the technological marvels, asked, "How did they create this? How did they build such advanced cities?" The teacher responded, "Through perseverance and intelligence. Humans had to start with very little. They didn't have natural advantages like many species. They didn't have bodies adapted to extreme environments or instincts honed to survive in the wild. What they did have, however, was an incredible ability to think and build. Over centuries, they learned to harness the power of fire, invent tools, and eventually create technology that reshaped their world." The students watched, captivated, as the simulation showed a timeline of human history. It wasn't a smooth path. There were wars, famine, and devastating natural disasters. But through it all, humanity continued to innovate. They didn't sit idly by when the world around them was destroyed. Instead, they rebuilt, each time learning from the past and becoming more resilient. Even their cities, though advanced, were built on top of the ruins of older civilizations. They had developed a culture of learning from failure, of turning every disaster into an opportunity for progress. The key to understanding humanity, the teacher said, is that they never give up. They are not the strongest nor the most powerful, but they are relentless. Every challenge they face becomes a lesson, a chance to evolve. And even when things seem impossible, when their world seems to be falling apart, they find a way to move forward. The simulation zoomed in on a particular moment in human history, a catastrophic event that had nearly wiped out civilization. A massive asteroid, the size of a city, had struck the planet, causing fires, tsunamis, and earthquakes that decimated entire regions. The students watched as the disaster unfolded, each devastating wave of destruction more intense than the last. Yet, despite the near-total destruction, humanity did not vanish. Instead, they rebuilt. What you're witnessing, the teacher continued, is a pattern that has repeated itself time and time again throughout human history. They face destruction, and rather than being defeated, they adapt. The asteroid strike, like so many other disasters, didn't break them. It pushed them to innovate even more. The simulation zoomed out, showing the global response to crisis. Humans banded together, pooling resources, and using every ounce of ingenuity they had to restore order. It wasn't just about surviving the physical catastrophe. It was about maintaining hope and working together to rebuild what had been lost. This was the essence of human survival, the ability to rebound, no matter how severe the setback. One of the students, a member of a species that valued collective peace and stability above all else, spoke up. But surely, they must have lost hope after so many tragedies. How do they keep going? The teacher smiled. That is the true power of the human spirit. They do not measure success by the absence of failure, but by their ability to rise after every fall. Their hope is not a passive belief that things will get better. It is an active force that drives them to improve, to adapt, and to rebuild. The students were silent for a long moment, contemplating the enormity of what they had witnessed. They had expected to see a species that had conquered the world with strength or cunning, but instead, they saw a species that had conquered it through sheer determination. It wasn't about being the best or the strongest. It was about never giving up, no matter the odds. As the simulation ended and the students were returned to classroom, their perceptions of Earth had been forever altered. The planet was not just a place of constant danger. It was a place where life had evolved to face those dangers head-on, to turn adversity into opportunity. The students had learned that the true strength of Earth's inhabitants wasn't just in their ability to survive. It was in their ability to adapt and push forward, no matter how impossible the challenge seemed. And in this, the alien students now understood why Earth was called a Deathworld. It wasn't the deadly creatures or the hostile environments that made it such. It was the unyielding will of the humans, who had faced down extinction countless times and always found a way to rise again. In the end, it was their ability to learn, to adapt, and to persevere that made Earth the most dangerous and perhaps the most remarkable world in the galaxy. The final section of the lesson took the students deeper into the true nature of Earth's resilience. The teacher now focused on the most profound characteristic that set Earth apart: the unwavering human drive to overcome even the most unimaginable odds. The students had already been exposed to the natural dangers of the planet, the brutal ecosystems, the relentless predators, the extreme weather, and the destructive forces of nature. But the most striking lesson, one that would stay with them long after this session, was how the humans' greatest strength wasn't simply in their ability to survive. It was in their capacity to thrive in the face of adversity, to rise from the ashes time and time again. The teacher began by recounting one of the darkest periods in human history, the devastation caused by global warfare. The Earth had once been torn apart by conflict so fierce and widespread that entire civilizations had nearly been wiped off the planet. It was a time of suffering and destruction on a scale that even the most hardened alien species couldn't fully comprehend. Yet, as the simulation revealed, after each war, humanity rebuilt. They didn't just restore their cities. They rebuilt their societies, their cultures, and their spirit. The world they had nearly destroyed with their own hands became the very foundation of their renewal. What you see here, the teacher said, is perhaps the most remarkable aspect of human survival. They are capable of immense destruction, but they are also capable of great creation. They can tear their world apart, but they will always find a way to put it back together. That is the true nature of Earth's resilience. The simulation showed the aftermath of a global war, where massive portions of the Earth's population had been lost. What the students observed, though, was not just the aftermath of devastation, but the tireless work of rebuilding. Cities reduced to rubble were being reconstructed by the hands of humans who had lost so much. People who had once fought each other now came together to rebuild what had been torn apart, driven by a sense of unity and shared purpose. The alien students were stunned. They had been taught about civilizations that fell and were never rebuilt. Destruction on many of their own worlds meant extinction. Yet the humans not only survived their wars, they grew stronger because of them. This ability to turn tragedy into an opportunity for rebirth was something the students found both alien and inspiring. One student, whose species had faced extinction due to an environmental catastrophe, asked, "But why? Why do they rebuild after such destruction? In our history, we cannot recover from our own disasters. Once our world was destroyed, we were lost." The teacher nodded gravely. That is the key difference between humanity and many other species. When other civilizations are faced with destruction, they often despair, seeing the end as inevitable. But humans see the end as just another beginning. Their history is one of cycles, yes, but these cycles do not break them. Instead, they give them the strength to try again, to learn from their mistakes, and to create something new. The simulation then shifted to a more recent moment in human history, when they faced the challenge of environmental collapse. Earth's ecosystems, long in decline due to pollution, deforestation, and other human actions, had begun to deteriorate at an alarming rate. Species were going extinct, the climate was shifting dangerously, and the oceans were rising. For many alien species observing the simulation, it seemed as though humanity had reached a point of no return. Yet, once again, the humans had turned the tide. The simulation revealed that, instead of giving in to despair, humans united across nations to tackle these crises. They turned their attention to cleaning the oceans, replanting forests, and developing sustainable technologies. They fought to reverse the damage they had done, despite the overwhelming nature of the challenges they faced. The students watched as humans created technology that could clean the air, capture carbon from the atmosphere, and create renewable sources of energy. The alien students were astonished by the sheer determination and ingenuity required to undertake such monumental tasks. Humans are driven by a remarkable sense of responsibility, the teacher explained. They may have caused the damage, but they did not run from it. They confronted it head-on, understanding that the survival of their planet and their species was in their hands. It was their intelligence and their ability to work together that gave them the chance to heal the damage. One student, who had observed numerous civilizations rise and fall, remarked, "In our history, we would have seen this environmental collapse as a final sign. We would have accepted the end of our civilization. How do they have the strength to keep fighting?" The teacher's voice softened. Because for humanity, survival isn't just about the present. It's about the future. They don't fight only for their own lives, but for the lives of those who will come after them. Every challenge they face not just for themselves, but for the generations that follow. And that is what makes them different from every other species. The simulation finally moved to show humanity's spacefaring future. Earth, once a planet ravaged by wars, natural disasters, and environmental collapse, now stood as the cradle of a new era. Humans had ventured beyond their planet, establishing colonies on other worlds. They had learned to harness the resources of space and had begun to terraform planets to make them livable. The students were taken to a distant colony, where humans were working to create new homes on hostile worlds. It wasn't easy. The challenges they faced in space were even greater than those they had encountered on Earth. But humanity had done what they always did. They adapted. They built new technologies to create breathable atmospheres, to shield themselves from cosmic radiation, and create sustainable habitats in the harshest environments. The students were astonished by the sight of these far-flung colonies. They had witnessed the dangers of Earth, and now they saw the human spirit extending beyond their home world. How can they thrive in space? One student asked, wide-eyed. Is there nothing they cannot overcome? The teacher's response was simple. Nothing. As long as they have the will to survive, they will find a way. The lesson was clear. The alien students had entered this experience with doubts about Earth's ability to support life, let alone produce a species capable of becoming a galactic force. Now, they understood that Earth's true power wasn't just in its predators, its violent storms, or its environmental challenges. Earth's power lay in the humans who lived there. They were not merely survivors. They were creators, innovators, and, above all, survivors who never gave up. Their story was one of perseverance, of constantly rising above the dangers that sought to destroy them, of finding hope even in the darkest times. As the simulation ended and the students returned to the classroom, they were no longer skeptical. They had witnessed the full scale of Earth's story, the relentless drive of its inhabitants to survive, adapt, and thrive. They now understood why Earth had earned its reputation as a death world. It wasn't because it was the deadliest world in the galaxy. It was because the humans who called it home had mastered the art of turning death into life, of finding a way to survive even in the face of impossible odds. And in this relentless spirit, the students saw a reflection of what they could achieve on their own worlds should they ever face a crisis of their own. Earth had shown them the power of resilience, and now they would carry that lesson forward, forever changed by what they had witnessed.